Hey, welcome to my channel. My name is Kyle, and on this channel, we take culture, TV, and movies, and we filter it right. Today, I'm going to target everything towards soccer. That's right. I'm going to talk soccer, specifically the World Cup, and specifically the U.S. victory over Thailand yesterday, 13-0, all the controversy that happened. And if you want to know my thoughts on that and the celebration aspect of it and how there's hypocrisy all over the place, or if you just want to know a little bit more about soccer and how it works, how the FIFA series or the tournament goes, you're in the right spot. So sit back and get you a drink and sit back with me, probably about 30 minutes, maybe or less, but I'm going to talk about extensively those aspects, and I'm going to do it in a way that's going to be organized. This is the 612 edition of Informal. Typically what I do on these, I organize a outline based on current events. I talk about it. I go through some screens that I go through on the internet, and we just talk through it. That's really about it. I give you my opinion, and that's really all there is to it. But I am excited because I have a new toy right here in front of me. This new microphone, which is pretty awesome. And I waited actually a month to get it. I tried to get a deal on Amazon, but you know what? It didn't go very well. I waited over a month and it still was late. And when it finally came, supposed to show up on my door on Monday, it didn't show. I canceled the order immediately that day and ordered that same thing to be delivered today on Monday. And it's here. I unpacked it, so I got to cancel it and ship it back when it finally does get here, which is totally ridiculous, but whatever. Things happen. I saved $6, I thought, if I had done it the other way, but whatever. I spent the money and now I have it. So anyway, hopefully the audio sounds great. I have a little pop filter here, so I'm excited because typically on these kind of things, I had a Lavelle mic or a lapel mic, which I had to hook up, wire in, I was tethered in, I had to do all this, and then I had to edit it out, and I had to re-render the audio a lot of times to make it sound halfway decent. I'm still trying to get through my audio situation. I think I have it mostly corrected. I got a new microphone for my boom mic as well, and so I should be pretty well covered. Just gotta get the levels right. But I'm hoping this sounds a lot better. I'm not gonna have to re-edit it. I can just put this right on YouTube as long as I don't make any major mistake while I'm going through this. So we should be good to go. But my topics for today is soccer. So this is women's soccer here. This is from the Thailand game yesterday. That's Rapinoe excited on her goal. And part of the things we're going to talk about is actually the celebration. When you score 13 goals, what's appropriate and what's not appropriate, or that's all subjective. We're going to talk about that as well. And so the first thing we're going to talk about the World Cup, what it is, so forth, the setup, how it works. And then we're going to talk about the USA versus Brazil. I'm going to clarify that in a little bit. It has to deal with World Cups. I'm going to talk about the game yesterday versus Thailand, kind of go through that and how that played out, the different style of play. And I'm going to talk about the controversy from that game. There's lots of it. And then I'm going to talk about the overall aspect of how the left eats their own when it comes time to stuff about rewarding success. Okay, so with that, let's kick this thing off. And I'm going to first talk about the World Cup and what that is. So the World Cup is governed by an organization called FIFA. It is the Federation for football or football Americana or soccer, and they govern all this stuff. And so the World Cup has been in existence for a long time in the men's. It just started in the women's, I believe, in 91. I'm pretty sure that's right. If not, it's close to that. And the U.S. actually won the first Women's World Cup. So, and U.S. women have 3 World Cups. They won the past one in 2015. And so the way it works is you have 24 teams. And I'm assuming the men are the same way. Let me just say this. I'm not a soccer expert. I enjoy the game. I played the game in high school. I played it as a adult league, rec league, and I coached it a little bit, in YMCA. And I played a little bit on, video games back in the day. That's really about all I know about it. I grew up watching Pele, whatever. So I'm not proficient at it, but I do enjoy it. I'm a fan. That's all there is to it. I'm a fan when it comes to tournaments. I don't like friendlies. I don't like stuff like that because if it doesn't mean anything, there's no anything at stake to it, so I don't really get involved in it. So, but World Cups, absolutely, I'm all over it. And so the way this works in the women's World Cup is you have 6 groups of 4 teams each, making a total of 24 teams. And so here we have the FIFA website here, and so these are the standings so far, what's been played. So you have groups A, B, C, D, E, and F. And the U.S. is in group F. And so the way it works is you have 24 teams, and you have what they have a round robin, which means that every team in each pool or each group plays each other for a total of 3 games. All right, so every team plays everybody else. Out of that, 2 teams advance. And then those 2 teams cut the field from 24 to 12. That 12 goes into a single game elimination tournament. And that plays out. So in the group play, there are no ties. It's just whatever. There are tiebreakers, and I'll talk about some of that later, but there are no ties. And so, I'm sorry, there are no tiebreakers. Let me say this again. There are ties in group play, but in the knockout round, the round of 12, there are no ties. It goes to overtime, and then they have something called penalty kicks later if it goes to that. And so that's how that works. And so right now, I've seen a bunch of these games. I saw this morning, France play Norway, I believe. Yep, and I think France won that one. And I haven't seen China play yet. I did see Germany play. I saw them play. Actually, I don't remember Germany playing at all, but I do remember seeing England and Scotland, and I saw Argentina play as well. And I saw the United States, of course, play, and I saw a few other games. So I've seen about 8 games so far, and they've all been pretty enjoyable. And so typically the women's game so far has been top heavy in terms of teams that can really do something in terms of like be really amazing. And then the bottom half or the bottom 2/3 typically just aren't up to par. It's really a top heavy situation in women's soccer, but it's getting better. And we're starting to see some of that now. Whereas the U.S. women have been consistently the best team from the inception in 91 all the way to now. They've always been considered the top 3 program in the world. And in fact, I think they've only been number 2, maybe. They've always been 1 or 2 overall, and I think they've never been out of the top 5. And they've always gotten to the semifinals at least in the World Cup, I think, except for maybe one time, if I get my history right. They've just been very dominant. And so they're expected to be successful this year as well, just maybe not as dominant. And I'll get into some of that a little bit later as well. So that's pretty much the World Cup. That's pretty much all I really much know about it. And it's just fun because there's so many games playing. And the good thing about it is because it's in France, we're on the East Coast here in America, we get games in the morning. We wake up and there's games going on. So 12 o'clock there's a game, 9 o'clock sometimes there's a game. And so all during the day, right before I leave from work, there's like 3 or 4 games. So, and you can't watch all of them, obviously, but you can put it on your phone and leave it on your desk and kind of watch it, follow it, or watch it on ESPN, on whatever. But it's really, really a fun thing to actually watch, especially when your team is expected to do well. It makes it more fun because when your team that you're rooting for is a favorite, it makes it more fun to watch. That's just sports in general. When my team is good at something, I watch more of it, and that's no different here as well. And so that's that. And so the USA versus Brazil, and this is kind of I wouldn't say it's a clickbait, but it is more of a misleading title. I didn't have a better really thing to say here other than what I'm trying to make out here is the fact that because we talked about the World Cup and because we talked about the fact that I mentioned this every 4 years. It's every 4 years. Okay, so the World Cup's every 4 years. So that's another thing I may have failed to mention. So from 91 it started, and it again happened every 2 every second odd number year. So 95 would have been a year, 99 would have been a year, and so forth. And so the U.S. has won 3. And in the men's side, on the men's side of the U.S., they haven't won any. Okay, so the Women's World Cup, because they won 3, there is a tradition in soccer where on the logo of the team, the national team, if they've won a World Cup, they get a star for every World Cup that they've won. So Japan won their first World Cup, well, I guess 8 years ago. And so I haven't seen their logo yet, but I would assume it has at least 1 star on it. And that's how that works. So Brazil's men team has 5 stars on their jerseys representing the 5 World Cups that they won. And so this is the U.S. jersey right here. This is the U.S. logo that they changed right after the World Cup. So the 3 stars are there. Now, this isn't me being petty, but it's just me being observant. The women won these stars. They won these World Cup. The men haven't won anything. So they don't have representation in the stars. Okay? So if you look at the jersey of, let's say, Brazil, okay? Now you can't see this because I'm doing some chroma key there with the yellow, my green screen. You're gonna see some darkness there, but there are 5 stars there, and that represents the 5 World Cups that the Brazilian men team have won. But obviously that's not a man. That's Marta. That's a woman. I believe that's Marta. It's captioned to be Marta, who's a soccer player for Brazil, female team, women's team. And so you have that. And so if you can kind of see where I'm going with this, with the climate of today, where men are men or women are women, and women can do what men can do, and men, just are negative light towards women, and the hashtag movement and so forth. And so it's just surprising to me that will be accepted on this side, because I guess it's okay to have representation of men's accomplishments on women's jerseys if, it's something revolving sports. But any other time, I wouldn't see something like this being accepted. Is it just me? Let me know in the comments below. Am I just being petty, whatever? But I'm not stopping here. I got one more thing to say about this. And so if we go over to the men's team, now the men do not have stars in the jersey. If you look up here, there are no stars on the men's official logo. But there is stars on this particular jersey. So if you can buy a men's USA 3-star stadium home jersey if you would like. And so, I don't know. I haven't seen the men wear this particular jersey on the field. There was a men's jersey with 3 stars, the old jersey, but that was prior to the women getting their 3rd World Cup, and it had to do with USA. It had to do with the logo itself not having to do with World Cup. So, which was controversial because I didn't know what it meant, and people were wondering what it meant. So I looked it up on Reddit and some other websites, and that was not part of it. So there's less controversy on my mind on that. But you can still buy this. This is from the USsoccer.com site. So this is an official US soccer jersey that you can buy. I'm just not sure if it's on the field jersey that you can wear. So, but anyway, that's my take on the controversy USA versus Brazil. Just my observation. Again, I don't care either way. Makes no difference to me. I just find it pretty amusing because of the climate that we live in with this virtual signaling going on all over the place. Okay, so USA versus Thailand. Okay, so the USA were the last team to play in the first round. So of the teams in the first series of games for each group play, they were the last team to play. And so the teams, I'm going off a interview mostly by Alex Morgan. She's one of our players, U.S. players. She had 5 goals yesterday. She killed it. She crushed it. And she had some amazing goals. I'm going to cover that in just a bit here. And I'm going to jump over here to ESPN's page here, summary page. I'm going to kind of go through some of the stuff here. And so, and again, if it's black on your screen, that's because my green screen chroma key is blocking it out. So if you don't see anything, it's going to be because of that. I can't do anything about that and have myself be on the screen at the same time because it wouldn't come out. Just the way the technology works. So in this game, again, the U.S. women's team had 13 goals. That's a record for World Cup. For the women's program, I looked it up. The biggest blowout win that they've had is 14 goals, and I do not believe that was a meaningful game. I think that was a friendly, which means, again, if you don't know much about soccer, it just means it's a exhibition game. Okay, and so in this game, you had Pugh come off the bench and score. She scored later in the game. Carly Lloyd, who is in 2015, had a hat trick against Japan in the championship. This woman went off. In fact, I get to her even more in a second, but she scored a goal in the past 5 World Cup games. She was clearly our best player in the last World Cup. And Alex Morgan, who was also part of that team, had 5 goals. And she had a couple that were just really, really amazing. And I think her play now has gotten so much better. She's always had high potential. She always seemed to do well against weaker opponents, and that's no exception here. But it just seems like she has the ability now to finish goals a lot better than she had in the past, instead of just being wide open and being freaking out and missing it. Having the poise, and that comes from experience to be able to do that. And I know because I've whiffed the ball right in front of me and playing the game. It's just a pickup game, and you can't make it because you got to sell it and whatever and all of that. You think you have more time than you do, and someone comes over, or you think you have less time than you do, and you still can't get it off. So those things come from experience. Megan Rapinoe, I said this many times that I believe she's one of our veterans. She is, in my opinion, probably the best passer that we've had in U.S. women's soccer. She's fantastic. If you watch her passes, the balls that she puts out, it's really impressive. She just has it right on the thread, right in position. And if you have any doubts whatsoever on that, go check out her pass that she gave Amy Wombat against Brazil in the World Cup. USA was down by a goal, and time was running out, and it was a breakaway toward the left side, and she just rips a left-footed shot, bends it over to the right cross, and the goalie's coming over to grab it, almost gets it, and Amy Wombat right on the dime heads it into the goal, and they score, and I believe USA goes on to win that game. And that was an amazing finish for that. And she's always been good. And that was many, many years ago, and now she's just even more awesome in my opinion. And so she had a goal toward the end, and Carly Lloyd again, she had a goal, and Mewis and Lavelle had a goal. Those are two starters now. They actually replaced Carly Lloyd as a starter, and she actually came off the bench. You know, how demoralizing is that if you're Thailand to have, a starter come off and have arguably our best player come off the bench? That's ridiculous. And I want to talk about a couple of players that didn't score but are really phenomenal. And I want to talk about Crystal Dunn. She's out of North Carolina. She played UNC, and she's extremely fast, small frame, but she's a dynamic player, and she's going to be a big role. She's going to play a big role coming into this tournament. Again, because she didn't score doesn't mean that much, and neither did Tobin Heath, who is a walking highlight reel. I mean, I was watching, she was doing some stuff and some jukes and some fakes, and consistently just really crushing it. And I think she's going to be a big part of it too. This U.S. team, if you're unfamiliar with soccer, how it works in terms of positions, the USA played a 4-3-3, which basically means you have 3 up front toward the goal, at the opposite side of the goal, in offensive position, left, center, and right. You have 2 attackers on the left, and you have the striker in the middle. And essentially, the goal is to get the ball to the striker so they can score. And you have the midfielders, 3 of those, and you have 4 in the back to defend that area. In this game, Thailand played a 4-4-1-1, which basically had 1 person toward the attacking goal, 1 behind that, and you had 4 people supporting them in the midfield and 4 behind that. And it's just ways of playing soccer. It's different advantages and reasons why you do that. And so that was what we played yesterday. And one thing about our U.S. soccer team that I've heard, I don't know because the players that we have now, I'm not as familiar with because I'm just not really getting into it. I really didn't get to look back into the women's soccer until the World Cup was starting up again. So I'm learning the players as I go through and research them. But from what I understand, our defense is pretty much untested, and that's probably our weakest aspect of the team, particularly our goaltender, our goalkeeper. We have a brand new goalkeeper because the awesome Hope Solo, who is one of the greatest goaltenders of all time, who actually came after one of the greatest goaltenders of all time, Brandon Scurry. We've had two phenomenal World Cup goaltenders in the U.S. women's history. She's no longer there. Hope's no longer there, and so I'm not even sure who the goalkeeper is, quite frankly. But whoever it is, they're going to have to step up and play a big role. But one thing about this U.S. team is that they have tons of scorers. They have goal scorers, people who can just flat out score. I mean, you're talking about Mewis and Lavelle, Lloyd, Morgan, absolutely. Rapinoe can even score. Heath is crazy good from what I can tell. And I don't know who Kristen Press is. I'll keep an eye on her. But obviously, this team is just dynamic. If they can just play on this defense and score 2 or 3 goals a game, they should be perfectly fine. But you never know in the knockout round who you face. If they go up against a home team, France, who I watched play today, they look pretty good. They had one player, number 11, who is a right wing attacker. She was dominating pretty much the left side over there, and the right side over there. And so who knows if you play a team like that in a knockout round, what happens? Anything can happen. Soccer, anything can happen. So that would be interesting to see. But for the most part, the USA is absolutely the favorite to win the World Cup. But it's not going to be a cakewalk by any stretch of the imagination. But the pool that they're in, the group that they're in, that's going to be Group F, is a pretty favorable group. So they have Chile on Sunday at 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And if they win that, they're going to basically advance to the next round because 2 wins is going to pretty much give you get 3 points per victory. And I think you get 1 point for a tie. And then there's tiebreakers to determine the top 2. But if they beat Chile, they're gonna advance. In fact, even if they tie Chile, the chance of them not advancing is gonna be slim. Anyway, so they will play them, and Sweden. That's gonna be their toughest match. That'll be the last match they play. So they already had 2 matches under their belt to get ready for Sweden. It's like tune-ups more or less, and I think they beat Sweden too. I think they go 3-0 in their group. And they qualify number 1. And, that's probably how it's going to work out. But you never know. Okay, so let's get back to this hockey. So I'm pretty much done here. I don't know anything else I can really talk about these players. Let me see. That's pretty much all there's really to talk about here. So let's move on to the next topic. And that's going to be the controversy. Okay, so, of course, now, if you pretty much figured out by now, 13 goals in soccer is a lot. It's a lot. It's crazy. It's unheard of. And really it could have been 15, 16, or 17. At halftime it was 4-0. And it really could have been 7 or 8 because there was opportunities then when they easily could have gotten those goals. There were 8 saves made on Thailand. So obviously you can get some saves, but half those saves could have been goals. So you really could have been talking about 17-0. And the way the women were playing, they would have been totally okay with that. And I'll get into some of the controversies a little bit later in terms of the amount of scoring. But it's that's a lot of scoring. And so there's controversies on basically 2 fronts. One is the number of goals, right? And number 2 is, well, we talk about that first. Let's talk about the celebrations first. I'm sorry. Let's talk about the number of goals. So, there are 2 reasons why scoring 13 goals is no problem, and it's not even it's not even up for debate at this point. And there's 2 reasons for that. Number one, because in group play, there are no ties. I keep saying that. There are no, you can have, okay, in the group play, you can have ties, okay? And so one of the tiebreakers is goal differential. So if you score more goals than someone else and you're tied with somebody else, if you score more goals in terms of, if you score more goals than you had scored against you, then that's going to count as a positive for you over the team that has less than you. So there really is no ceiling to the number of goals that you should get in pool play in terms of having them, because you never know if you'll need them. And that leads to my next point. And the second point is this. It was the first game of group play. So you don't know how many goals you're going to need. In theory, you could need 20 or 30 or 40. Just because you beat a team 15-0 doesn't mean that another team, Sweden, could beat that same team 18-0. And then if everything else breaks evenly and you face Sweden and let's say you tie, then guess what? Sweden gets it over you because they had 3 more goals over the team that you beat with 15 goals. And so that really is not an argument at all, in my opinion. That's not even my opinion. It's just fact. All right, let's just call it a fact. But yet you still see people in the mainstream media complaining about, oh my gosh, the USA scored too many goals. This is ridiculous. Why couldn't they just hold up? And every time that comes up and someone has challenged them, it shuts them down because it's like, oh, well, yeah, okay, you're right. So then they move to the next talking point. Next talking point is this. Well, they shouldn't have celebrated. They shouldn't have celebrated. They shouldn't have what? They shouldn't have celebrated. Well, I'm going to bring up an interview. I'm going to make sure I got the right person here. Yeah, it was Alex Morgan. Alex Morgan had an interview, and they asked her a couple things. And the interview, you can go to ESPN and check this out yourself. And so they asked her, yeah, so Morgan, what's the deal with you guys scoring so many goals? Do you feel bad about that? About the controversy? She said no. She said, we spent our entire lives for this moment. We're gonna celebrate our goals. I'm gonna celebrate Rapinoe's goal. I'm gonna celebrate my teammates' goals. That's their moment. We've waited our whole lives for this. This is something that we have waited for and longed for and dreamt about and worked hard for. And she was unapologetic. And I'm like, you know what? You go, girl. I am so sick of people being so down on success. You work hard. You spend all your childhood. You kick the ball against the wall for hours and hours and hours. Your mother, your dad takes you to soccer practice. You have blisters on your feet. You can't walk. You have to get tutored. You're doing travel team. You're in and out. Your parents are spending money left and right on jerseys, on admission fees, and all kinds of stuff, equipment. And this goes on for years. And I personally, I won't mention who, but I am personally friends with the parents of a very famous U.S. soccer player. He's retired now, but I in speaking with them and understanding what they had to do to raise him and get him to where he wanted to be, it took a lot. It took a lot of sacrifice. And I know when I was growing up, we always practiced, thinking that one day we would make the free throw to win the NBA championship, or we would throw the winning touchdown pass to win, the Orange Bowl or whatever, Super Bowl, whatever. Kids dream that stuff. And so what's happening when you see these players, even on the worst player on the worst team in the World Cup, it doesn't matter. That person on the worst team in the worst country in the World Cup is excited to be there. Well, at least they should be. Because regardless, they worked hard. They deserve to be there. They earned the right to be there. All right. They beat other people out, hundreds of thousands, even millions of people in some cases, to be there. And to say you can't celebrate is just asinine. Now, if they were taunting, that's one thing. I'm not really on board with that, because that's just silly. But the fact is that soccer players are just a little eccentric in general. I mean, that's just from my own anecdotal personal experience and what I've seen on TV, but they just are. They're flamboyant, they're excitable, they're emotional at times, and that's just what they are. And part of that is because of the game the way it is. You spend 40 minutes, 50 minutes, 60 minutes playing this game 0-0, and you've had chance after chance after chance, and you finally hit a goal. As a fan, you're watching it, you're waiting, and when it finally happens, it's gonna happen. Oh, it didn't happen. And when it finally happens, boom! It's like wow! It's like a release of emotion, excitement. Yeah, you're gonna get excited about that. And one thing Alex Morgan also said is this. She said, "Look, it would have been disrespectful to Thailand if we had not been playing all out." In fact, she even said she said she thought that the players themselves wanted them to play straight up. And if anyone would know that, it would have been her, and then she goes on to say this. She says, well, I'm not sure if she said this or not. I may have heard it from somebody else, but I agree with this. Is that these countries, if you don't want to get beat, if you don't want your team and your players to be quote unquote embarrassed, which I don't think is embarrassed. If you qualify to get there, then you deserve to be there. That just prepare your players better. It would be disrespectful to play down to them. If you play down to them for what? All they're going to do is make your team worse on the next go around. And I played table tennis competitively, and I gave this one kid a chance. He was a nationally ranked table tennis player. He was like maybe 12 years old. I was like in my early 30s. I was crushing it. I beat this kid in the first match, and this kid goes off. Who was like I say, he was like ranked like maybe 20 in the world, 20 in the country, whatever, at his age group. He was an awesome player, but he just kept making mistakes, and he goes off, starts crying, and really I could have had him disqualified for him taking too much time. But I said, no, whatever, dog, whatever. He comes back, regroups, and beats the living crap out of me. I'll never forget that. I mean, and I was a good player. I was rated, for a time in the thousands, but I was still, an official ranking, and I was a decent player. But this kid was just phenomenal, and I played down to his expectation. I let him in the game, and he won. And so that's the kind of thing that you can't do. And I also want to mention really quickly, I didn't mention this before, but I kind of alluded to it, is that teams have to qualify. So the country is divided up in different regions. So all these countries, have to qualify in their respective areas. And there's tournaments that are qualifiers that they have to play, and they get points. And if they do that, they can qualify to the World Cup. If you're the host country, you get automatic spot. Makes sense. So, but yeah, so that was that. And Alex Morgan was dead on. And I will say this: it's interesting because based on some of her comments that she's made, it's interesting, and I'm curious if she feels the same way about rewarding hard work as she feels about soccer. Why is it that we reward soccer or sports in general, but yet we're totally hypocritical when it comes to other things in life? And I just hope people could connect the dots on some of this stuff. And this is the kind of reason why I do this, is to expose that and to let people see the hypocrisy, so that, dude, really? Yeah, it's hard work. So they should be rewarded. If you earn your money, if you work hard, you should keep your money. Okay, that's kind of where I'm going with this. And I'm sure you kind of figured it out. Right? Yeah. So now, that leads into eating their own. And so I saw a Canadian commentator. He was basically saying, the women, they scored too many goals. And then the commentators who actually played soccer with them were like, these were Canadian announcers. And they were saying, well, no, there's this thing about differential goals, and you got to score goals, and especially it's the first time they've played, so you don't know how many goals you need. So he goes, oh well, yeah, whatever. Well, then they should have been celebrating. And that's kind of the narrative. That's kind of the narrative now, that they should have been celebrating. And I like what Alex Morgan said. I mean, she really nailed it. She said, I don't care. This is my dream. This is what I sacrifice. I'm going to celebrate. This is the World Cup. This isn't some friendly whatever, and that means nothing. This is the World Cup. This is what it is. And you have 4 years to get it. If you get it wrong, you have 4 years to think about it. And sometimes careers are over. This could be Alex Morgan's last World Cup. She'd be 4 years older after this. I mean, I think she'd be 30. I'm not sure how she is now, but probably not her last World Cup. She'll probably make another one. But with injuries, whatever, you never know. 4 years is a long time. And so Carly Lloyd was starting 4 years ago. Now she's coming off the bench. And so, anything can happen. Anything can happen, and I really liked her on that. And I just want to say, going forward, when you look at this kind of stuff, when you see this kind of blowouts, or you see in sports in general, how you have people who are really good or teams that are really good, and how you have the announcers and other announcers and the commentators. Typically what you'll see is a person who doesn't play at all, who's just an announcer, and then you have the color commentator, who is the person who's actually experienced. They're actually telling you about the technical aspect of the game, or what you're watching. And typically that person is the one that was an athlete, and they understand, and they're always going to be the one to reward the hard work. They're going to reward the effort. And then you have the one who never played, dare I say Bob Costas, right? Who would come at you and say, hey, oh yeah, well, this is that. And it's like, come on. And that's what I mean by eating their own. And you see this all the time, that, virtual signaling, political correctness, social justice warrior, all that stuff, it contradicts itself because it makes no sense. It's emotionally driven. It's not based on any kind of fact whatsoever. I'm going to do a video soon about economics and about a survey done by leading economists around the world on various economic issues, and how all of them agree that conservatism is pretty much the way to go. And this is Democrat, Republican, Libertarian. This is across the board economists. And so, but you don't ever hear that. But yet the talking points are the opposite, as if they're fact. And that's what I mean by it. And you see the same thing in sports. And I kind of got hit this morning when I did a review on the Chernobyl HBO miniseries that wrapped up. And I was accused of saying that socialism caused Chernobyl. And that's not what I was saying. What I was saying was, and I put this in the comments, what I was saying was that a BuzzFeed article made an observation that the governments hide bad stuff when they happen. And I was like, well, you know what? That's true. But under the surface there, you watching this series, you see socialism at its finest, at its worst, really. I mean, really. And that a lot of things that were happening, not necessarily were attributed to socialism, but you could see the effects of socialism that was on that country, and you could see the dilapidation in the infrastructure and everything else, and the things that they weren't able to do to fix the problem. And I was drawing a parallel in that light as a reminder of that's what Russia was like in 1986 and so forth. And so, yes, it's probably a loose comparison, but I was no way in saying that socialism caused it. I'm saying all this to say this, is that the whole point of exposing this kind of hypocrisy is what I'm talking about. Is taking these types of observations and putting them out there for discussion. And I admit it may not be the best comparison, but you know what? It's worth talking about. It's worth talking about, and it's worth acknowledging. And it's definitely a talking point where if you don't agree with me politically, we can watch it and talk about it. Well, do you think that 1986 Russia looked good? Do you think that was something you want to be part of? If so, okay. If not, let's talk about it. So anyway, that's what this channel is all about, and I'm glad you stuck around. It's been 38 minutes. Oh my goodness, that's longer than I thought. Okay, all right, so let's wrap this video up. And so if you like the content that I do here, where I take content of culture, TV, and movies, and culture's kind of the wild card, I do book reviews and other things too. Anything I really feel about political slant and that sort of thing too. Obviously, we're going to lean it right, but my focus really is to just look at some of these things that are hypocritical and expose them and put them out there so people can discuss, talk about, and be educated. I have a walkaway series too about people who left the liberal side of things and now want to go to and now are looking at things more critically. I have that series there as well, and so that's sporadic. I've only done like 4 of those, but I may do a few more. But that's it. If you like that and this is what you want to listen to, then you're at the right spot. I'm gonna do more of this. Click that subscribe button and that bell icon so you won't miss any future content. And I'm gonna put some videos up right here that I want you to check out if you can, and leave some comments below and let me know what you think. Until next time, you have a great evening and God bless.